Hello and welcome to today's webinar. It is lovely to have you with us all today. Today's webinar is all around building an authentic employee experience in 2024 and beyond. For those of you that don't know the Curve Group, here's a very quick overview for us. So the Curve Group is a leading provider of configurable HR and recruitment services. We support our businesses with their entire employee lifecycle on an outsource, project or a consultancy basis. What we can do is operate as a replacement or a complementary solution to your existing HR or recruitment team. Our clients always benefit from engaging on a single provider that delivers a professional service and absolutely looks at the strategic people needs. We are passionate about the relationships and doing the right thing and ensuring that our people solutions transform working lives. We're extremely proud of what we deliver here at the Curve Group, and here on the screen you will see just a few examples of some of the awards that we've won over the years and that we are incredibly proud of. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Sam Pusey, who's our Head of Insights, Employee Brand and Marketing, and Eleanor Austin, who's our Creative Digital Marketing Executive. And just for those of you that don't know me, my name's Anna Clapton. I head up the HR consultancy service here. Just before we get into the main webinar today, just to say that you are all on mute at the moment. We will be recording, as you can already see, and we'll have ample opportunity to ask questions and answers throughout either the webinar or as we go along today. There is a dedicated session at the end as well. Post the webinar, you will receive a recording as well as all of the slides, just so that you've got your own reference material. So what's coming up today? Basically, Sam and Eleanor are going to take you through everything that you can see on the screen now, and they're going to do that in a beautiful tag team method. So we're going to look at a great overview of what is an authentic employee experience, benefits of a compelling employee experience, macro and micro employee touchpoints, and we'll go into those in a little bit more detail. We will then look at how to build that authentic employee experience, and Sam will take us through the review, the entire employee value proposition, and then obviously we're going to look at how to connect with each other, how do you connect with the community, how do you connect with your candidates and your employees and keeping those engaged. And then what we'll be doing is we're looking at some next steps, which is all about measuring employee experience, continuous improvement model, key takeaways, as I've already said, an opportunity to look at some Q&As or take some time out to answer any questions. And again, then we'll look at what's coming up over the coming year within the Curve Group. So as we go through today, you will see that we'll be talking about a number of our services. And as we go through, you will see one of these little tags in the top corner of each of the slides, and that will just bring home to you which service we're looking at. That could be HR consultancy. For those of you that have worked with the Curve Group before, back at the end of 2023, we conducted quite a major survey and we looked at the 2024 vision, taking into account all of your live feedback. We'll look at our candidates, we'll look at our recruitment and HR services, our recruitment solutions and our recruitment marketing. And of course, you can always find out more about us on the Curve Group as website as well. So without any further ado, what I'm going to do now is hand over to Ellie.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you again for joining us today. I wanted to start by first explaining what we mean by the term authentic employee experience. Gartner described employee experience as the way in which employees internalize and interpret the interactions they have with an organization, as well as the context that underlies those interactions. This context is your culture, your values, your mission, your D&I, your working policies, everything that makes working for your organization unique to you. And in order for this experience to be genuine and to be true and to be authentic, the interaction and the underlying context must align. But why do it in the first place? Well, aside from being the right thing to do, there are real tangible benefits to investing in your employee experience. We know that people who have a positive employee experience are 16 times more engaged than employees with a negative experience. In turn, this means that projects are more likely to be successful and completed on time because people are more motivated and willing to go the extra mile. This means that productivity increases. Alongside this, we know that when employees are engaged, absenteeism decreases. And what's more, when people enjoy working for your organization and have a positive employee experience, they are more likely to refer their friends and families. And referred hires stay around 70% longer than other employees. So essentially, by investing in your employee experience, it significantly elevates your talent attraction and retention capabilities. And research from our recent 2024 vision highlighted the importance of employee experience in talent acquisition and retention strategies, and identified it as a priority area for many of our survey respondents. So employee experience really is becoming a differentiator. So if you're not already investing in it, now really is the time to do so. But what does an employee experience actually entail? So you will be receiving a copy of this slide, so please don't worry about writing everything down. And it also forms part of our worksheet that we will be discussing later on in this webinar. The macro touchpoints are the key milestones in an employee's life cycle with your business. And these are made up of the micro, smaller touchpoints and interactions that help build this authentic experience. And then your underlying pillars is the context that we previously discussed on which these interactions are based. And we know that this can seem overwhelming, which is why we have broken it down into 3 stages, which Sam is now going to discuss.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ellie. Hi, everybody. Again, thank you for joining us. So I'm now going to start talking to you about how you actually begin to build and foster an authentic experience, both for your candidates and your employees. I think it goes without saying that it takes a lot of effort. It will require a bit of investment, some change in some cases, but not necessarily any actual physical spend. So don't let cost be a barrier to this. There are, however, a lot of moving parts, as you will have seen in the previous slide, and we've got something that Ellie mentioned that we'll share with you to hopefully help you to make sure you can align all of those moving parts. But what I'm really going to focus on initially, and why the first point on this bucket is around reviewing what you've already got. I'm going to talk a lot about your employer brand, and later I'll come on to your employee value proposition. And the reason why both of these 2 areas are so important is because both of them actually help you build your kind of authenticity employer brand to market, and both of those elements give you credibility if you manage to harness them well and make sure your messaging is consistent. It builds trust both within the market for prospective candidates but also with your employees. But in essence, we were recommending that it's a very simple 3-stage process. So first of all, of course, it makes complete sense to review what you've currently got, and the key thing that I'd just like to highlight on the review bucket is that it must be through the eyes of candidates and employees, which can be really difficult if you've been in a business for a long time, you're not a new starter, you're in HR, you're in talent acquisition, and these are kind of things that you're looking at all the time. You've probably become really familiar with them, but when you're looking at reviewing some of these elements, macro and micro elements we're going to talk about, try to think back to what it was like to be a candidate and put yourself in their shoes once again. Lovely. So like I say, we'll start with the review and just to give you a little bit more detail around employer brand and authenticity. So again, your employer brand is absolutely how you will as a business be portraying yourselves, whether you like it or not, out into the market and also to your employees within the business. It's essentially the tool through which you can both attract and retain the talent that you need. But to be authentic, which is what this all boils down to, it must be genuine and it must reflect your values, your vision, and your mission. There are lots of influencing factors on an employer brand. Firstly, you've got the recruitment influencers, because the chances are, the candidates that you're bringing into your business will be touching a number of these sort of touch points initially. So things like your recruitment process, like we talked about, the content that you're putting out onto social media, which is targeted at prospective candidates, the information that you have on your careers website, what other people are writing about you on your Glassdoor page, and what your onboarding process looks like. All of those are influences in terms of your employer brand. Now, once you've got hopefully a successful candidate through the door and you've onboarded them and they become an employee, you then kind of swap into the HR influences. So this is where we start to talk about your employer value proposition, your working policies and practices, again, your mission, your vision, your values, your behaviours, how you approach diversity, inclusion, belonging, your workplace environment, so the physical spaces that you're working in, and also the kind of ongoing career development opportunities. The key thing absolutely here is connecting the dots between both sides of that spectrum. So you've got the whole entire employee life cycle covered, and again, making sure that you're consistent and that you're being authentic. I think it could be quite easy to get carried away in sort of social media content and career site content to kind of wax lyrical about, you know, your amazing organization, all these lovely things that you're doing, but that might not be real. And you need to make sure that everything that you're pushing out at the beginning of the process is genuine, so that when you have employees actually join your business, their reality very much reflects their expectations, and you're not going to lose people because they've been missold effectively. So how can you actually go about taking stock of your employer brand, what is and what isn't working, when it comes to employee experiences? We've got a few areas here. I won't read all of them, otherwise I'll be here all day, but there are kind of a number of areas that I just wanted to pick out initially. So like I said in the previous slide, it's really important to look back at the simple things like your processes. So how does a candidate make an application for a role to your business? What does that process look like? Is it easy? Is it straightforward? Are there any barriers that you're putting in place there? Look at your data that you've got in your business if you're collecting data already. So look at your employee opinion survey results or surveys that you've conducted for leavers or new joiners, and look at what that's telling you. Also, an area that I think is definitely taking stock post the world of COVID and having such an explosion in the sort of talent acquisition area and it becoming such a competitive landscape, I would definitely recommend looking at what your competition are doing. Because if you don't look at that, you are not forewarned and forearmed in terms of what your candidates are likely to be looking at and comparing you to. So it's really, really important. We've seen a huge increase recently in the of our candidate experience audit that we offer at the Cove Group, which is basically us going in as a completely impartial party, pretending we're a candidate, and looking at all of these areas on the screen for you, and then producing an insights pack and some feedback to you and sort of insights on where you can improve and recommendations. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, please do let us know. So you've done your review. I think what I would like to share, again, I won't go through all of these, but some of the kind of typical challenges that we've seen when we've done these audits on behalf of our customers is actually, again, to go back to process. It sounds really obvious, but sometimes they aren't quite as smooth or effective as they can be, and they actually result in either bad hiring decisions or significant dropouts because candidates lose interest and they get snapped up elsewhere. Another key area that I think has rightly so come under sort of further scrutiny recently is around assessment processes and selection processes, and the ability for those to actually accommodate people that might need reasonable adjustments if they've got neurodiversity requirements, etc. So when was the last time that you checked that your assessment processes were going to enable and cater for the broadest range of talent possible? Another very hot area is definitely around kind of benefits and what candidates are looking for in terms of benefits packages, not just financial these days. There's a lot more talk, and that will come onto the next slide, but in terms of other areas that they're interested in and passionate about that they want to see you playing through to them as well. And then another really big area that it's still, I think businesses are now moving the dial more on this in terms of sort of focusing on retention, but a lack of development or sort of visibility of sort of future career opportunities. So flipping on to the next slide, in terms of some of the great stuff that we see come out of the audits as well, and again, anything that's positive here should really be used to kind of promote your business. It's genuine, it's authentic, shine a light on what you're doing in your recruitment marketing on LinkedIn and your careers pages. But just some of the kind of typical things that we know are landing really well with candidates and what they're expecting. So again, an onboarding process, that's really, really key. And you need to ensure that you've got a really smooth, great onboarding experience. So you're really setting that candidate and now employee up for success. Areas like remote working, we know are a little bit contentious still, whether you've got fully remote, hybrid, return to office mandates kicking about, but the flexibility that remote working options and hybrid working options apply is a massive plus for candidates. Again, and then right the way through to actually organisations who've got really great clarity on what their development programmes, career programmes and progression look like on their website, in their socials, again, are really going to be kind of head and shoulders above others in terms of being able to attract candidates and deliver a great experience for them. So once you've undertaken a review of everything related to your employer brand from a candidate and an employee experience point of view, how do you then step forward to use those results to elevate your employee value proposition? And really with a focus on building, fostering and increasing the authenticity of the experiences that you provide for your candidates and employees, and ultimately your culture. So the important thing here, and I cannot stress this enough, and I have already done so, but I'll keep coming back to it, is just to keep it real. Again, don't get carried away. Don't promise things that you cannot currently deliver, even if they're on your long list. Do not, overpromise, underdeliver, and then have disappointed employees and disgruntled candidates. Keep it real the whole way through. So before we step into that in a little bit more detail, I've already talked quite a lot about employer brand, but I just wanted to kind of briefly give a bit of a summary around why employee value propositions are also linked to your employer brand and why it's so important to connect those two areas together with a view to creating authentic experiences. And as you can see from the description, your employee value proposition, again, is essentially the way that you reflect and you broadcast your reality of what you offer to candidates and to employees, if they come and join your business. So it is so, so important that your employee value proposition is accurate and it reflects the reality of what it would be like to work in your business. Now, there's quite a lot on this slide, and again, this is a whole webinar's worth of content on its own, but there are 10 ways here that we have listed to sort of bring out some of the ways that you can then step forward and elevate your employee value proposition authentically. And I just want to pick out a few of those areas here. And for me, there's a reason why number 1 is at the top, because it's fundamentally really, really important. You need to make sure that you get your story straight. And by that, you need to make sure that your vision, your mission, your values, your behaviors, your expectations, your responsibilities within teams are all accurate, they're genuine, they're communicated clearly. Everybody across the entire business are clear about their responsibilities and why you're working and what the end goal is. Because actually, if you can get that piece right, everything else will then follow suit. Build your offering and shout about it. The 4th point down, again, is really, really important. So your offering, again, needs to be accurate. It needs to be authentic. And once you've got that figured out, you need to get out there into the market and promote it and explain why you would be such a great place to work, recognizing all of those positive things. So, what is your benefits package? Do you give sort of career days back to people to go and invest in further development? Are they able to go and take days out of work to sort of donate locally within the community and donate their time, etc., etc. Line managers, so near the bottom now, line managers and leadership, it's so, so important that they are living and breathing your employee value proposition, because they are setting the tone on your shop floor every single day, and they are the people that your employers will be looking up to, and they are also the people who ultimately are kind of responsible for making sure that they're fostering, a nice, open, honest and safe culture and environment which drives that sense of community and belonging between your teams. And finally, don't be afraid to empower your employees to lead, get involved. Whether they might be wanting to set up different network groups or they want to be champions of various different things, give them the empowerment to take control of some of those areas and invest where they're passionate. And again, the spin out effect of that will just be so great in terms of elevating your EVP and the community in which your teams work. So I just want to bring an example to life on this next slide, which will touch on something that Ellie mentioned about earlier in terms of looking at some of the root cause analysis around some of the challenges that might come up when it comes to the experience that you're providing for candidates and or employees in this case. And I'm going to use the 5 whys problem solving technique, which is the really simple process, basically to repeatedly keep asking the question why 5 times to get back to basically what the root cause is of the issue that you might have. So one of the areas that you might get some really strong feedback from in all of your review activity is that actually your employees aren't feeling particularly supported or valued. So ask why. It might be that line managers aren't providing the feedback or direction to them that they need. and then ask why again, they might be, the line managers, consistently cancelling one-to-ones with their team members. Ask why again. So it might be they don't have time to manage their teams. Ask why again, final time. It could be, likely be, that they're not actually being provided with the space, the time, the training, or the tools to actually be effective to support their employees and make sure they are feeling valued. So that's all well and good, but what can you actually do then to sort that out and to make the experience better for your employees? So just a couple of ideas here. So again, I mentioned on a previous slide, invest some time in upskilling your line managers. The amount of times we see in loads of different industries and sectors, I was definitely one of these people, but I became a line manager and managed a team before I was given any training and actually had to manage people early in my career. And quite often that, unfortunately, is the case. So invest in upskilling line managers and educating them on actually what that means in terms of their responsibilities. Look at adjusting their roles and responsibilities as well to make sure that they have time to be able to manage their team members. Revisit your frameworks that you use within your organisation to complete one-to-ones or to reviews, and make sure that actually they're not kind of a barrier or causing any sort of blockages in that process. Make sure they're really simple to use and actually they are a tool that help line managers to support employees rather than a tick box exercise. And finally, I would think about revisiting all of your mechanisms that you've got in place internally for recognition, reward, performance management, both on the positive and the negative side, to make sure that you've got all the right frameworks in place so that employees who are doing a fantastic job are celebrated and feel valued, and those that might need some more help also have a great sort of framework to ensure that they get the help that they need. And hopefully, bringing all of that together, you'll find that the next time you run a survey internally, the dial, the mark will change in terms of employees, and they'll feel a lot more supported and valued. So hopefully that's just useful to bring all of that example together. So I'll round up the Elevate section with some of the top tips before handing back over to Ellie. So to really make a difference and enhance your experiences, and as a result, your EVP, your employer brand, your culture, you have got to get buy-in from the top of the business right the way down. Otherwise, everything that you're trying to put in place just isn't going to stick. And again, like I say, everybody in the organisation needs to see the leaders at the top living and breathing and sort of towing the party line and setting a good example. Map your employee life cycle, your entire employee life cycle, from that initial attraction piece right the way through to how you deal with leavers and exit people out of the business. And make sure, and I'll come on to this later, that you're kind of collecting data from different points across that employee life cycle so that you can monitor the experience, and that will also give you the indication early on if there are any areas that you need to look at and step in to improve. Start small and build out. Like I said before, it's tempting, but do not go out there and overpromise and underdeliver. Share the responsibilities, make it clear what's on the shoulders of leadership, what they need to do, line managers, what they need to do, and actually employees as well, because everyone's got a part to play in building experiences internally. And of course, ensure the approach that to anything that you're doing is inclusive and you're not going to alienate anybody. And finally, just remember, I'm laughing because it's true, but unfortunately, it's never a once and done thing, any of this stuff. The dial is moving so quickly on a lot of this in the marketplace still, as we sort of bounce back from COVID and beyond a few years down the line now. But candidates are far more informed and employees are far more educated now, and their expectations are higher. So you need to keep pace with that. Over to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Sam. And our final stage is to connect, which is to make space to foster an authentic community and sense of connectedness. But what do we mean by these terms? Well, community can be defined as people who are considered as a unit because of their common interest, social group, or nationality, whereas connectedness is the state of being connected and having a close relationship with other people. We want to encourage colleagues to get to know each other as individuals and provide opportunities for people to thrive and belong in a safe and nurturing work environment. And this isn't just a nice to have, it directly impacts your business. These statistics are taken from the 2023 Global Culture Report by OC Tanner Institute. They collected and analysed the perspectives of over 36,000 employees, leaders, HR practitioners, and business executives from 20 countries around the world. The statistic that really stands out for me on this is that when organisations score high on the community index, they experience 785% higher odds that employees feel like they belong. In turn, when people feel like they belong, they experience some really great outcomes. They experience a 40% increase in job satisfaction, a 38% decrease in burnout, and the statistic that we are focusing on today, a 40% increase in satisfaction with their employee experience. So this really does show the significance of creating a community in your business. And how do you go about this? Well, here are 8 traits of a positive community that are transferable across all industries and sectors. For a number of these elements, they overlap, and for a number of them, you cannot have one without the other. Underpinning all of these is the aim of fostering connections and providing an environment where people feel safe, secure, and can interact with each other on not just a work level, but a personal one too. And we can create the sense of belonging from somebody's very first interaction with your organisation. And recruitment marketing has a very important role to play in this. 67% of candidates visit your career page before applying for a job. 45% of candidates will check your online reputation, and 68% of millennials will visit your website specifically to evaluate your brand for themselves. When it comes to the application, it wants to be easy and simple. Around 60% of job seekers will quit in the middle of filling out an online job application if it's too long or complex. And then your interview is most likely going to be the first actual face-to-face interaction you have had with your candidate. So your hiring manager plays a critical role in creating a positive candidate experience. Ensuring that they are trained on effective interviewing techniques, communication, and decision-making can really make the difference and help create a more positive experience for your candidates. And here we have our 10 ways to create this sense of belonging from the very first touch point. At all stages, you want to communicate and feedback. Candidates will also share their own experiences of engaging with your business, and particularly in niche and candidate-led markets where competition for top talent is high, this can have a serious impact on your future hiring capabilities and your employer brand. So remember to share your values, your culture, and the community that you're building at every step. And then from candidate to employee, we want to maintain this level of exceptional experience. And this is really about aligning the expectations and needs of employees once they've joined your business. And onboarding has a very important role to play here. It's estimated around 28% of new starters will quit in their first 90 days, and employees who have a poor onboarding experience are several times more likely to be disengaged at work. Then with your training, you want it to be digestible and micro. And then when it comes to retention, your line managers have a critical role to play. Around 40% of employees believe that line manager support is the most important contribution to developing their careers. And then finally, we have your policies and practices. These need to be inclusive, fair, and transparent. And we are going to be discussing this in more detail at our next webinar in June. And here we have our 10 ways to create a sense of belonging for employees. This is all about fostering connections and providing opportunities for colleagues to get to know each other. You want to commit the time and the resource, create shared goals, build trust and relationships, provide opportunities for feedback and communication on a regular basis, and work together as a unit. This is all about fulfilling your responsibilities to employees. I'm going to pass you back across to Sam now, who's going to be discussing the next steps. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Ellie. So we're just going to start edging towards bringing the webinar to a close now, but what I want to talk to you through first is how you then take all of this stuff. So once you've looked at how you're building your authentic employee experiences within those work streams, how do you keep the momentum going on that? And I'm sure a lot of you have used this framework before. It's the classic plan, do, check, act model with obviously continuous improvement at its core. And actually, I think it's a case of why reinvent the wheel? If it isn't broke, don't fix it. But this is definitely a way that I would recommend continuing to build some of the review pieces, the analysis, the action into your annual cycle of events, at least within your organisations, to make sure that you're just constantly moving the dial on your employee and candidate experiences. So in the previous slides, we've talked a lot about the planning, the reviewing, and the doing. And now I just want to talk to you very briefly about how you can actually go about checking the impact that some of that activity that you set forward with has had on your candidate and employee experiences. So in this next slide, we've just got a handful of different examples of some of the metrics that you can be tracking and some of the baselines. Thank you, Emma. So I'm not going to talk you through all of them again, but I'm sure you'll be not particularly surprised to see some of these up here. But just to give you some examples, these are the kind of areas that you should be trying to collect data on if you aren't already. And it will be able to give you, with that data, a really good baseline so you can see where you are now and then the impact of any of those initiatives that you step forward with. And it's also a great way, if you're monitoring this data, to have a look on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis and identify where things are going really, really well, and also obviously identify where there are areas that need your focus. It will also help you to be able to prioritise where you start. So just to call out a few, things like referral rates are really key. So as Ellie mentioned earlier on in the webinar, we know that referred candidates actually stay in businesses for a longer time. So if you start to see a spike in your referral rates, either going up or down, it's definitely worth investigating that, particularly obviously if they drop through. Things like pulse surveys I talked about before, employee engagement surveys, just keep an eye on what your employees are telling you, because some of those things will change, no doubt, over the period of time. So even if you're asking the same questions, you can at least look at whether employee sentiment is moving up or moving down. Productivity is also another area, going back to some of the stats and insights that Ellie provided at the beginning. Ultimately, a happy employee is a productive employee. So if you start to see any dips in terms of employee productivity or output rates, that should be a really quick and easy way to flag to you that there's something that needs looking at there. And then finally, internal comms metrics is another really good one to look at. So how engaged are people with events that you're putting on internally for them? Are people responding? Are they joining in? Are they taking the initiative to contribute? They're all really good sort of telltale signs in terms of, you know, have you got happy employees? Are they having a great experience within your organization? You, Anna. So then, of course, the final and the most important step at all times is actually to then go and act on what the data is telling you. Use that data to be able to identify where you need to start in terms of priority and what's a nice to have but not so important. So, for example, if your recruitment surveys that you're issuing to both successful and hopefully unsuccessful candidates too, so you get a nice fair spread of feedback. If the scores on that dip right down, you definitely need to jump into that and look at whether it's the process that's causing issues. Do the recruiters need some upskilling? Is there a mismatch between what's going out in the ads versus kind of interview experience that they're having? So investigate that. And again, just continue to use your metrics to keep assessing where you need to make those improvements. And that framework will give you an evergreen way to approaching the experience. So as Ellie mentioned at the beginning of the workbook, when she showed you a busy slide, which had a very high level overview of all of the micro and macro touch points and where you can influence experience within both recruitment and an employee journey. We have got a free workbook, which we're going to send you a copy of when you get a copy of the recording. And this will give you all of the details broken down into the granular level with all of the areas that we'd recommend looking at in terms of you know, how you think your current experience is sitting. So do please get in touch with us if you want any help or support and advice when you're starting to use that worksheet, but we hope it provides a useful starting point for you. Then, before I hand back to Anna, as always, just a few of the key takeaways from today. So make sure you're testing your candidate and your employee touch points and processes, but again, try to remember to do that from the perspective of a candidate and or a new starter. And again, that's why it's really important to make sure you're surveying those populations. So you can do it from your own perspective, you can get other people involved to test, but also it's really important to get that feedback from people that have just been through those processes. Look at your data, look at your feedback, have a look at, in terms of analysis of what it's telling you. Are there trends? Are there dips? And what can you do about it? Think about your content, think about your employer brand, your employee value proposition, your recruitment marketing, and what you're putting out into the world, and also what you're sharing internally with employees. Is it engaging? Is it authentic? Is it consistent? Does it reflect your vision, your mission, your values consistently? Train your recruiters and your hiring managers on what an exceptional experience should look like. And that's something that you can keep touching in on to make sure that it remains fresh in their mind. Really key thing here, actually, which I haven't talked about a lot, but I think the ability to personalize an experience, whether that's in your recruitment process or as an employee, will go a very long way in terms of making it an authentic experience for that person. So make sure that you've got your solid framework, so it's all very consistent, but you have got the people have within your organization do have the power and the ability to tailor and personalize that experience so that it works for them. Try and stay one step ahead. I know that's a lot easier said than done because there's a lot here to cover and to think about, but really in terms of delivering a great experience and an authentic experience, try to make, whether it's your candidates or your employees, you're essentially trying to make sure they're happy in their environment, and by making sure that you're ahead of the game and giving them the information that you know they probably want, without having to chase you, or start to feel a bit, disgruntled or kind of unsupported. That's really important. Don't forget the plan, do, check, act methodology. But finally, and again, linked to everything that we've covered today, keep it real. Make sure that everything that you're doing or you're thinking about doing in the future is fully aligned to your actual reality of working in your business, and it links to your vision, and ultimately it remains authentic.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Sam. Thank you, Ellie, for your input in today's session. Just to kind of summarise really and conclude, we talked a lot around the services that we've discussed today. So just to reiterate, we obviously touched on a number of them, which is our HR consultancy service. We reviewed and looked at a lot of the data for the 2024 vision, which some of you may have played a part on. We've looked at our candidate experience, our recruitment experience and HR, the recruitment solutions that we can offer, and the recruitment marketing. I think in 2024, we absolutely plan to focus on leadership development, employee experience surveys and associated action, planning global career frameworks to support role clarity and development. It's all linked to improving the experience of working for organisations. And that was just one of the beautiful survey responses that we got when we carried out that trend survey at the end of 2023 to take us into 2024. So we've got an opportunity now to open up the floor for any questions. If you do want to ask us any, then please do so using the little Q&A box on your toolbar. If you would rather reach out to us individually, then again, we have just popped up our email addresses, or you can find us via the website. I will just give it a couple of minutes just to see if we have got any questions at all that come up.
Everyone's being shy.
Everyone's being shy. You know, that's absolutely fine. What I'll do is I will take the opportunity to move on, but as I've already said, please do feel free to reach out at any time if you do have anything following today's webinar, and once you've got the material and the workbook as well. So we've got a couple of webinars coming up throughout the year. The next one, just as we've mentioned throughout, is driving success and profitability through workplace policies. And this is all about having those right foundations in place. Quite a hot topic at the moment is all around neurodiverse workforces. So we're looking at empowering a neurodiverse workforce in September. And then we're going to be looking in December at ethically harnessing all AI tools in HR and recruitment. Again, the registration for those is already open, and you can register for any of those using our website and the Insights link. I'm just going to leave you with three, thought-provoking sentences, really. So, can it be truly authentic if you are doing it for an end goal? How will the growth of AI impact the authenticity of a genuine experiences? And can an experience be authentic if it isn't delivered by a human? And some of those lead very nicely into kind of, I guess, our future webinars, especially when we start thinking about AI and how authentic our workplace policies are and those foundations that we do to build that fostering culture that we've talked so much about. Finally, it's just left for me to say on behalf of Sam and Eleanor, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. And we very much look forward to either working with you in the future or for you joining us along with our next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.